Sukuna has taken over Megami, and finally, after all this wait, Gojo is released from Prison Realm. The strongest Jujutsu sorcerer of this generation is finally face to face with the King of Curses, Sukuna. It doesn't get more hype than this, so make sure to stay tuned to know how these two monsters do against each other. We start off with Angel, who has finally decided to undo the seal after almost losing her life to Sukuna. It's fitting that an angel will be the one to bring back humanity's only remaining hope. So as soon as the curse is lifted, Gojo comes out of the prison realm with an earthquake. The prison realm was placed at around 8,000 meters below the surface in the Japan Trench, and cursed spirits were even placed to act as sensors beneath the multiple layers of seals over top to prevent Gojo from coming out alive. We go from this to Kenjaku being face to face with Gojo in an instant. So he asks, how was it? As if he did Gojo a favor by sealing him and giving him some time to relax. But Gojo, not being in the mood, replies, hey, you should choose your words more carefully. After all, they'll be your last. But soon Gojo is interrupted by Sukuna, who as we know is in Megami's body right now. Gojo immediately notices this by saying, you've changed quite a bit since the last time I saw you. Sukuna brings up the promise from season 1 when he said, after I take this brat's body for myself, you'll be the first person I kill. Sukuna reasserts that he'll kill Gojo, to which Gojo savagely replies, you, a loser that had to run away from Yuji, coming with your tail between your legs is pretty pathetic. And after Gojo deals with the fodder that is Sukuna's assistant in record time, Kenjaku comes in telling Sukuna to wait. He says he has to make good on his promise to him first. Gojo, as lighthearted and hilarious as ever, frames this as the great Sukuna nicely obeying instructions from Kenjaku. The date for the final battle is set to December 24th, and Sukuna agrees. So Kenjaku asks Gojo if he thinks he can win, and with a flashback to the first season as to when Yuji asks who's stronger, full strength, Sukuna or Gojo, and Gojo remembers he said it would be a tad difficult with Sukuna at full strength, but he would win. And now we get a full page of his epic face reaffirming that he will win, as the narrator says, a declaration of victory right after his comeback ends the most hyped chapter ever. After this, Sukuna finally gets to 19 fingers in the beginning of the next chapter, but instead of trying to find the last one, Sukuna compensated for his missing finger by literally eating his own mummy because he thinks that Gojo hid the last remaining finger. So we have Sukuna at full power with Megami's 10 Shadows technique. Let's not forget that it was Gojo himself who stated that the 10 Shadows has the potential to equal or even surpass his own strength in chapter 119. Thus, 10 Shadows, along with Sukuna's own curse technique, means that he has a sheer ton of arsenal to counter Gojo with, not to mention the 2 domain expansions up his sleeve. This battle is heating up to be awesome. On the Gojo side, we see him getting ready to move to the fight location and getting some pep talk from Yuji, Yuta, Panda, and his other students and friends. Finally, we move to the day of the fight. We see Gojo on a roof with Utahime and Grams, whereas Sukuna is halfway across the city somewhere when suddenly Sukuna feels Gojo's aura. The first strike will be absolutely crucial and will decide the flow of the whole battle because it's a clash of 2 massive egos, the strongest of this era versus the strongest of the past, and this will also put one of them in the challenger position for the throne of the strongest. Utahime was not skipping any steps of her Jujutsu ritual. This allowed her to bring out 120% of her power. This was to help Gojo fire a hollow purple attack at Sukuna at 200%. We've seen how much damage 100% can do where it destroyed an entire forest in half, so 200% was already going to be much more stronger. So if you thought blasting a forest was impressive, Gojo totally obliterates the entire area, buildings and all, into dust. So what happened to Sukuna then? Before he knew it, Sukuna was hit with the full force of Hollow Purple and he had to immediately defend himself. Because of the barrier, Sukuna misread Gojo's move and could not even gauge the intensity of Hollow Purple's output until it was in his face. And just to rub it in his face even further, Gojo instantly teleports towards Sukuna, ticking him off even further with the most baddest declaration ever. I think there's a misunderstanding here, so let me set you straight, you're the challenger here. However, even with such a massive power boost to Hollow Purple, Sukuna only lost one arm. And with that, the final battle between the strongest sorcerer in history versus the strongest sorcerer of today began. Sukuna fires back by saying, "I'm the challenger, catching me off guard got to your head. You're just a nameless fish." Whereas Gojo makes it clear that just because he's wearing Megumi's face this time won't mean he will hold back. After that, Gojo and Sukuna start trading off multiple blows, with Gojo using his curse technique to throw Sukuna through a building and then uses his legs to try to stomp Sukuna into the ground. But once Sukuna regains his footing, instead of stomping, this time Gojo jumps and breaks the bridge. Sukuna is holding on to the broken bridge, but Gojo throws it towards a building, although Sukuna is able to evade the crash by dropping down below in the nick of time. Sukuna runs up on Gojo and launches a dismantle which cuts the building behind Gojo in half. After which, he surprises Gojo for a quick second by jumping towards him for close quarters. Sukuna punches Gojo and his infinity stops the punch. Although Gojo gets shocked for some reason, then grabs Sukuna, which seemed like it was by turning off his infinity, which allows the both of them to crash through the window of the falling building. This was later shown to be Sukuna using domain amplification to nullify Gojo's technique. They trade blows inside the falling building, but Gojo grabs a door in between them, and just as they're about to punch the living crap out of the door, the building reaches the ground, causing massive destruction in the surrounding area. As the smoke clears away, the chapter ends with the both of them surviving the fall, casually walking beside each other, and Gojo trying to pin the blame of damage on Sukuna. Then going on further, we see the Popcorn Gallery talk about what happens if they both use domain expansion and try to guess the outcome of the most hyped domain battle of all time. Just as everyone is busy guessing, both Gojo and Sukuna lay out their domains. Now that their domains have overlapped, the sure hit attack factor is just canceling each other out because they're more or less evenly matched at this point, so it's just basically both of them inside of their domains just standing there. If one takes heavy damage or one of their domains collapses, the other's guaranteed hit will immediately strike. But Sukuna's domain doesn't have a barrier like Gojo as shown in Season 1 and in Shibuya arc, so it's shown to be surrounding Gojo's barrier at all times, and Itadori seems to remember that domain barriers are very weak from outside. So by using slashing abilities within Malevolent Shrine, Sukuna repetitively slashes the barrier, which cracks the outside of Gojo's domain and are able to completely break Gojo's barrier into pieces with a few seconds. With Gojo's barrier down, his domain is gone, and Sukuna's sure hit effect takes over and straight up went to decapitating Gojo, and we see blood coming out of Gojo's neck on both sides. The barrier of the strongest shattered, and his savage blade breaks the unbreakable, says the narration as the chapter ends. After that, we see Gojo healing himself using reverse curse technique, but since he was still standing inside Sukuna's domain, unable to teleport or use curse energy, he was in a lot of trouble. Sukuna, again using the sure hit effect, slashes Gojo so many times so we can literally see Gojo bleeding from all over his body. While Sukuna laughs at Gojo's state, the Six Eyes user just appreciates the fact that his Limitless is a far better technique than that of the King of Curses. Gojo tries to move out of the shrine's range while healing himself, but Sukuna doesn't let him escape as he pressures Gojo with close quarter combat. Gojo is not only trying to fend off Sukuna, but he's also continuously healing from slashes by using reverse curse technique at full output. Even Sukuna is quite impressed himself. But during the battle, Gojo's Six Eye senses that the shrines is the heart of the domain and not Sukuna himself, meaning the center of the domain remains in one place. Before moving forward, Gojo activates new Shadow-style Simple Domain to briefly protect himself from the constant slashes of Sukuna's shrine. Gojo uses this time to heal himself up and move forward to another round of close-quarter combat with Sukuna, but the Simple Domain vanishes away, leading to Gojo getting cuts again. After it broke down completely, Gojo just activates another Simple Domain to buy another set of time and then stops healing with Reverse Curse technique. He's now allowing the slashes to, well, slash him. But suddenly he grabs into Sukuna with quick speed, indicating that Gojo has gotten his curse techniques back. Gojo then points his fingers in the face of a shocked Sukuna as he shoots a reversal red point blank, sending Sukuna crashing into his shrine with half his face destroyed. Though despite the damage, the King of Curses smiles as the chapter ends with Gojo healing himself again, saying, "Geez, what a pain in the ass." Common sense means nothing in the battle of the strongest. Now we go back to the battlefield with both domains down, and Gojo asks Sukuna if he can still expand his effective range. It leads to Sukuna activating his domain to the maximum radius of 200 meters, whereas Gojo also activates his domain in reply by saying, "Let's take this from the top." But this time Gojo switches the conditions of Unlimited Void's exterior, allowing the barrier on the outside to have more reinforcement and more durability, essentially tanking all the cleaves and dismantles that are currently hitting it. Sukuna then activates domain amplification while his domain is still active. This allows him to neutralize Gojo's infinity, and again going for a close range fight and exchanging multiple blows. And what's really interesting is that, well, we know that a user can't use their curse techniques when domain amplification is active. Sukuna also knows that Gojo's Unlimited Void is useless if you're directly touching Gojo. So just like Gojo knowing that Malevolent Shrine sure hits are technically useless because it's cancelled among Infinite Void sure hits, Sukuna purposely removed the sure hit effect attacks inside their domain clash via a binding vow in exchange for stronger attacks than outside of the barrier. Thus, we see Sukuna with his domain amplification purposely making contact with Gojo to protect himself from Infinite Void until the slashes on the outside eventually break Gojo's domain barrier. Sukuna replies, "So take it from the top," and attacks Gojo with a fury of slashes, sending him flying. Sukuna notices that the wounds from the slashes are shallow, and it's because Gojo used Falling Blossom, an anti-domain technique secretly passed down within the big three families where he coats himself with like a shield of cursed energy, and that cursed energy automatically repels or counters the sure hit of a domain expansion. Now, Gojo is not completely negating Sukuna's slashes. We see that they're still going through, but Falling Blossom in motion is just enough to repel the slashes away before Cleave or Dismantle cut too deep in his skin. And this buys time for Gojo to recoup and use yet another domain expansion, but this time he expands the range just over 200 meters to cover the entire range of Sukuna's domain, but fails as the barrier gets too thin and starts to break. To make his domain barrier stronger, Gojo quickly closes his domain within a size of almost a basketball, which was thought to be near impossible. The battle between the strongest becomes more dense, ends the chapter as we move forward. So the reason how Gojo is able to maintain that intense level of density right now without breaking his domain is because of his experience from the Prism Realm. Gojo's dense Infinite Void seems to be working well and holding on despite Sukuna also decreasing his domain's range on outside to make attacks even more stronger. So after 3 minutes, when Gojo's barrier eventually gets sliced up by Sukuna, the Malevolent Shrine also gets destroyed due to Gojo damaging Sukuna to the point where he couldn't maintain his domain. In those 3 minutes, Gojo physically damaged Sukuna inside the domain clash just enough to break Shrine at the exact same time that Sukuna destroyed Gojo's domain from the outside. This is also seen by Sukuna's bloody chest and face. So they basically tied each other and are now in a scenario where they're supposed to be facing curse technique burnout. However, Maki reminds us that both Gojo and Sukuna can use reverse curse technique to heal their burnt out curse technique. Angel also replies saying that Gojo made the mistake by showing that technique to Sukuna, considering Sukuna was able to turn himself into a cursed object after experiencing it for the first time with the help of Kenjaku. So they both use reverse curse to heal their burnt out technique and trade a couple of heavy blows. Gojo starts wondering that in the domain clash they did recently, why Sukuna hasn't used Maharaga or uses mysterious techniques in general when inside the domain. Instead, Sukuna was using domain amplification to counter his infinity, but had he summoned Maharaga there, the adaptability power could have been an effective tool to counter Gojo's Limitless. But Gojo also thinks that maybe Sukuna was hesitant to summon it, considering that a potent enough attack like purple or red would have been enough to one-shot Maharaga. Although it's shown a panel later that the wheel is turning, an indication that it has adapted to an attack, and Gojo's nose suddenly starts bleeding. What do those eyes see through? In the next scene, we see Gojo and Sukuna activating their domain expansions for the 4th time after Gojo just wiping the blood off of his nose. Gojo again has 3 minutes to damage Sukuna like last time. Inside domain, Gojo's rushing Sukuna, going out with his fists, chasing him all over, beating him down successfully, also sending him flying into the Malevolent Shrine and just continuing to beat him down to the point where both of their domains are breaking at the same time once again. We can see that the left part of Sukuna's face is burnt off. As soon as the domains break, Gojo sent Sukuna flying with a punch and both immediately went to activating domain expansion again. But this time, Sukuna is at a severe disadvantage because when they again activated their domains for the 5th time, Sukuna was already damaged from the beating he took inside and outside of domain, making him heal his body for a quick second and then recovering his cursed energy, putting him at like a 0.1 deficit behind Gojo. So this means that Gojo has successfully activated his domain first, and even if it was just for under 0.01 seconds, Gojo's unlimited void finally hit Sukuna, making him lag out a bit with all the information he took. Gojo uses this opportunity and just hit Sukuna instantly in the chest, crushing his heart. After 2 minutes and 40 seconds of this battle, Sukuna's domain collapses, making Gojo the winner of this domain battle. Sukuna is finally stuck in unlimited void, unable to move. "I am not done yet. Crushing your heart was the minimum. I want your lungs, and liver too. I will bring you closer to death than Yuji was at detention center," says Gojo as he moves to strike Sukuna. But somehow, even after being hit with the unlimited void, Sukuna manages to summon Maharaga, stopping Gojo in his tracks. We have been waiting for this because we knew in the previous chapter that he had the Dharma Chakra active. Gojo needed to defeat Maharaga in one hit, and hitting him with a curse technique reversal inside Unlimited Void surely would have ended him, but Gojo's plan failed as Maharaga just one-shots Gojo's domain and breaks it from the inside, and we see Maharaga smiling at him. The grin that breaks the balance ends the chapter. Could Sukuna have survived without Megumi's techniques? Do you want us to do a full version of this fight after it ends? Is there any manga battles you want us to cover? Let us know down in the comments and we will see you in the next video.